of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero. Chapter 168. At long last. Shota's point of view. Part 1. Being suddenly weightless, his chest free of the constricting braces of concrete that had been squeezing him. Papa! I've got you, hold on. Aizawa Shouta secured the terrified child against his chest and curled around her the best he could. She wouldn't know another instance of pain, not if he could help it, and then... Oof! His aching, previously cold, strained back connected with a soft, billowy surface as the swirling black void, a kurogiri, that was hovering above him, slinked and shifted into a distinctly feminine and impeccably dressed shape, who now stood primly beside the bed he'd landed in, her gaseous eyes widening at him. Oh, Shady! We're so glad Sirius Chat found you. Are you alright? Blinking his tired, quivering body sitting up, the eatery owner did a double take, or three, when he found Shield Melissa and her father at the foot of the bed. I mean, after everything that's happened, I'm sorry, that was a really insensitive question, wasn't it? A four-poster bed that was set in an incredibly grand room, boasting Persian-styled rugs and European portraits. Shony? Huh. Am I dreaming? He tried, because all of this couldn't be real. Right? It's perfectly fine to feel disorientated, my friend. David murmured gently, a small smile trying to prick his lips, while his keen analytical eyes appraised him from next to the young woman, who was very much a caveat to him. You've been through a terrible ordeal, and... He didn't mean to pull the child a little closer to him. Dave was his friend. He was somewhere safe. Wasn't he? Dad, should we get Garaki Sensei? Oh. No. No doctors. He heard himself say, Aries whimpering, setting his frayed nerves on edge further, his senses tuttling around the pair in front of him. Where's Toshinori? Does he know about Jisaki? Does he know about his quirk? And what it could do? He rasped, his worry spiking. He could kill with a touch. Does he know that? What about the other heroes? Who else was with him? He needs to know what he's dealing with. Shouta. Breathe. Blinking, the eatery owner realized just how illogical he was acting. This wasn't him. He had Aerie to think about, his other kids, his family. He had to pull himself together. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Jerking a little, his eyes following the genius scientist warily as he slowly skirted the bed, the rookie pro felt his own trembling worsen. You're going into emotional shock, all right? Everything you're experiencing is being amplified, and since I can't see any signs of physical injury that needs immediate medical attention, we're going to get you and your young friend there comfortable and warm before we work through some breathing exercises, okay? Swallowing thickly, he was vaguely aware of the man asking his daughter to do something as he continued to stand there, his voice a calming, soothing croon. We need to get you both lying down. The older man instructed gently. Melissa has gone to get some more pillows and comforters so we can elevate your legs to get you more comfortable, and Kurogiri is going to ask our chef to get some lunch prepared for you. He added, his smile warming. Hopefully whatever she whips up will meet the same amazing standards you set for yourself. No, he interrupted, his shaking. I have to go. I need to warn him. I can't just sit here being useless. That's all I've been doing. Shouta. Balking slightly when the man purposefully stood a little closer, the wispy servant blinking out of existence after a bow to leave the three of them alone. The ribbon-haired man felt his pulse race. He wouldn't be... Yuta is with Toshinori, all right? Wait, what? His warder made that he'd keep him safe. For all our sakes. The brunette added kindly, their eyes locking. Together, I'm pretty sure that they could take on the whole world. Good night. Sagging a little, Shouta felt his arms carefully loosen their hold around the child into a gentler cuddle, her little face daring to look up at him. He managed. Seems like I've caused a whole lot of trouble, huh? No, the scientist stated, his tone firm but not unkind, as he took a step closer to the bed. This None of this is your fault, he continued. You're a survivor of something most people couldn't even bear to think about, he reminded. Would it be okay if I sat down next to you? Feeling himself nod, he didn't jerk or try to move away when the other let out a relieved sigh and softly approached, those keen eyes still checking and double-checking for any injuries upon him and his young charge. As far as he knew, they were both fine. Physically. He hoped there was a way to do something about all of the scarring, though, not for his sake, but for Aries. No child should have to grow up with a constant, permanent reminder of what they'd had to suffer, should they? It's been 5 days since you were abducted, my friend. The older man revealed carefully, the pair of them letting out a shaky exhale, whilst the brunette slowly balanced his weight on the luxurious bed's edge. I haven't spoken to Toshi in person about, well, all of this, but he called us this morning, he furthered. I've not seen you to that, overly protective before. He tried to laugh, the tension in the room slowly subsiding. Melissa was straight on to your study group, of course. Well, let's just say that getting you home is my number one priority. He grinned. Then why did he bring us here? He heard himself ask, his hands now soothingly rubbing against the child's back as she slowly unfurled, the stress of the situation hopefully leaking from her now that his own brain seemed to be onlining. Shit. To quote the man himself, that boy of mine will be too busy trying to calm down and help that family of his to look after himself if I don't step in and force the issue. The glasses were joggled. And you know that he's been trying to entice you guys to come for a visit, so, well, he's never one to miss out on an opportunity, is he? Huffing an incredulous laugh, the adrenaline that had been coursing through him petering away, Shouta finally felt himself relax a little. So, how's this, huh? Blinking, he felt an actual smile tug his lips, whilst he gently coaxed the little girl to sit up and pull her now tear-free face from where she'd been burying it against his chest. This, he replied fondly, her big, beautiful eyes blinking up at him, is the bravest person I've ever met in my life. Her name is Eri. He grinned as their gazes met. Eri-chan, this is one of the people I was telling you about. This is Melissa's dad, and you can call him David, all right? He continued, their native tongue flowing between him and the American, who now spoke like someone who had been speaking their language from birth. How times had changed. Oh, hello? She tried, her body daring to shift, her features becoming less pinched by worry as she finally looked around the room, her sniffles thoroughly subsided. Watching her unfurl, the rookie pro smiled warmly and helped her to reposition herself in his lap to owlishly blink at the genius scientist before curiously eyeing everything else. Eri-chan, eh? That's such a lovely name. The oldest of the three complimented, his features soft and pleased. Is there anything that you'd really like to eat for lunch, You can have anything you'd like, okay? He offered while slowly and calmly producing his Shield Industries phone from the beige-tailored pants he wore. The 6-year-old tried as she looked from the stranger and back to him. It's all right, he assured. We're safe now, okay? Re-entering the master guest suite that her father's partner had designated for the son he'd unofficially adopted, Melissa struggled to see around the fluffy multicolored comforters and bluesome frilly pillows she'd gathered, her sneaker-clad feet walking her towards the sounds of the two men and the little girl. Oh, God! Talking. God, she was so happy that the country leader had found Shoni. That he was here, no matter how jittery, and surrounded by thick walls, a veritable army of her dad and Garaki's followers, as well as the people who saw New Eden as something they wanted to protect. It was funny, in a way, how her life had changed since moving here, since seeing with her own eyes the impact that their beloved cat-dad's philosophies had had on Shigaraki-san, and the way he thought, the way he decided to do things, and how much closer he'd grown to her biological parent and herself. Well, she did not said as much to her friends. However, she now saw the charismatic, multi-quirked man as a kind of honorary stepdad, she jokingly called him such a couple months ago, and at the endearing look that had crossed his face, well, she could not call him Tosan, could she? Plus, using Japanese with him meant that there was no confusion between him and her biological father, since the pair were together so often, didn't it? She was really glad that her dad had made such a connection, that they'd found each other, even if Uncle Toshi had become so upset about it. Not that she blamed him, really. Few people had ever met Shigaraki Yuta, after all. No. And All for One's reputation sadly spoke for itself, didn't it? Apple pie it is, then. Hey, Bill, looks like we have someone else who enjoys your favorite dessert. Smiling widely, her arms dumping the bundle of soft, fresh linen onto the foot of the expansive bed, Melissa beamed at the people before her. Oh, wow! She offered, her hands clapping together excitedly. I hope you asked Miss Beaton to cut a slice for me, too. She furthered before scooting onto the bed, her eyes locking with the wonderful man who'd helped to bring nothing but goodness and joy into her life. Shoni? After a quick swallow, her lips trembling, she could barely contain her tears as the man smiled and beckoned for her to approach. I'm so glad you're here! Out of all the people Eri had known and could remember in her relatively short life,
so am I, Lisa-chan.
Papa was by far the most extraordinary.
I'm not holding you too tight, am I?
He knew so many people and was clearly loved by them, too. Not at all. It's been so long since I got one of your hugs, hasn't it? And as she sat to his left and watched the blonde girl cry into his right shoulder, she found herself wondering more and more about the kind of life she could have with him and the husband he'd told her about.
Hey, you're also a good foot taller than the last time you came by the Noroneko, aren't you? Huh?
Would you feel less comfortable with the man Papa affectionately called Mr. Rabbit, with their already adopted son, and the brilliant, enchanting men who were their wards, with all of the other people Melissa's age, with Kota, Kohana, Suyu's younger siblings, and Spinner's little sister, who were all closer to her in age, with all of the brave men and women who adored Papa more than she did? Could they like her? Would they like her, as scary as her quirk was? Yeah, Dad says I'll be taller than him by the time I stop growing, you know? She really, really hopes so. Sufficiently settled, his smile soft and pleased, as the blue-eyed genius continued to wow the little girl, now swaddled between them with her tablet brimming with photos and videos of his community. Shouta felt a bit better about, well, everything. However, that was because he was choosing not to think about things too deeply at the moment. Hell, he just about reined his mind in from what could have been a nervous fucking breakdown, hadn't he? Shit, thinking about the trouble Toshinori must have brought upon himself by involving Shigaraki was something he definitely needed to avoid right now, wasn't it? Shouta? Blinking away from where Eri was delightedly observing the cats scampering around their enclosure as Melissa pointed them out, named them, and her friends, the cafe owner stacked their empty bowls and turned back to David. The older man had left the room a few moments ago, his phone in hand, and was now approaching him across the thick-piled periwinkle carpet. His expression looked... Yuta's back. He has Tomer and Dabi with him, too. Like a mixture of concerned and relieved. Hell, his own face probably wore the same mixture of feelings, didn't it?
Are they all right? Can I see them?
Yes, of course you can. Yuta has. He's asked to see you and Eri first, though, if that's okay. Of course he had. Nodding, he gave Melissa another hug before snuggling Eri back into his arms and moving to follow the genius scientist who'd helped to transform, terraform, and bring more stable, secure, and suitable laws to what had once been the savage lands. He'd seen the others work for himself, even if it was only through messages, phone calls, video calls, and pie-peppered meetings held at the Noroneko out of hours, because when the mild-mannered CEO had decided to make the relationship he shared with All for One public between them and their community, well, Toshinori had been devastated, not for anything stemming from jealousy, but because he'd said he knew how the all-powerful fiend loved people. He'd actually begged David to see sense. He'd promised to keep him and Melissa safe at any and all costs. He demanded that Shigaraki be completely open about his past with him, but the world-famous scientist wouldn't be swayed, and what had started as a heated conversation spilled over into an all-out slanging match, and they'd not parted on good terms. Feeling for Melissa and for the man he'd once disliked, he'd made sure to keep in touch. Embarking on a relationship with someone world infamous couldn't be an easy decision, and he, due to his own experiences of dating and loving a person on the other end of that spectrum, couldn't help but empathize. His unofficial father figure had been stupidly grateful when he had found out about their communications too, and Toshi, well, he'd never been a man to tell him what to do or who he could speak with, and that, regardless of anything else, was one of the things he loved so much about him, and maybe, just maybe, this tragedy that had befallen him could bring David and his husband back together as friends. Maybe this could help them all to be together as a community, one that spanned across the divides that had separated them. And as the genius quietly led them through a series of grand, ornate corridors, for the first time since he'd been spirited away by those Yakuza goons, this is it. He felt hopeful about the future. They're right through here. The door's unlocked, and you can come back out here at any time, all right? He felt like things were going to be okay. That feeling sadly hit a couple of nasty potholes along the road of life when he and Eri entered the laboratory, though. "Ah, there you are, my boy. Do come in. This shan't take but a moment." Shigaraki greeted, his smile off as he beckoned them into the sterile environment where, kneeling upon the drain-scattered, gleaming, white-tiled floor, the men who'd tormented him and the child he held their heads bowed. "Oh, no, it wasn't." Getting our dear Tomura and that wonderfully protective husband of his, checked over by Garaki, will only keep their desire to be reunited with you at bay for so long. Now then, he grinned, his expensive shoes clacking ominously across the floor under the too white lighting as he approached him and the child. "I have made a deal of sorts with these men," he furthered, a firm hand capping his shoulder. "They are all quirkless now. Oddly, Chisaki-kun isn't quite as thrilled by this as he should be, though." He boasted at the turtle. "Therefore, for their protection in a world so hostile towards the quirkless, let alone quirkless criminals, they'll be staying here with me and the good doctor as a form of community service for the rest of their days." He smirked, rolling his eyes. "I really don't like the sound of that, Yuta-san. Now, Shouta-kun, let me be the doting father for once, okay?" The eatery owner huffed. It wasn't like he could do anything about whatever this was there? God, what was his life right now? "Boys, is there something you'd all like to say to me, my son, and soon-to-be granddaughter,
Oh, for the love of everything!"
"Thank you for your generosity, Shigaraki-sama."
"Really?"
"Please accept our apologies, Yagi Aizawa-sama, Eri-sama," the brutes stated in unison, their heads bowing further from the respectfully almost flat kneeling positions they were rigidly composed in, their heads touching the floor, with their closed fists doing the same, causing Eri to gasp. "We are truly sorry." Even for one so young, the child knew what the dogenza expression meant, for all the good such an apology would do in the light of the mistreatment they'd shown her. "Now, my friends, you will be sorry," Shigaraki breathed. "This is but only the first step you'll take to humility," he promised, a strange light flickering across the hand he'd placed upon his shoulder. "Oh, but the pain you inflicted upon my boy? The suffering?" He spat before he pulled his hand away to gently stroke down Eri's hair. Luckily, the girl was too spellbound by seeing her tormentors subdued to notice, and Yuta, true to a promise he'd made him a few years ago, quickly moved away, an aura crackling around him as he stood before them. "You will wait here. You will not move, not even an inch. And as for you two," he snapped, his body shifting toward Tabe and Tengai, the pair balking, "for daring to touch Shouta in such a way, you will be scrubbing the mastodon pens for the next 2 years by hand," he sneered. "I don't think yourselves lucky, and be grateful for that. Grateful that I'm sparing your miserable lives. Grateful that I'm merciful enough not to make your punishment worse." He spat before his temper simmering down. He turned back to them, his smile gentle. "Eri-chan, Shouta-kun, you'll never have to see these people again.
he soothed whilst gesturing for them to turn and walk towards another door, this one to the right of the ones they'd entered through only moments ago. Not unless you want to, and should you think of any punishments you'd prefer them to suffer, well, I'll be all ears. He grinned, the brightly lit chamber's barrier moving of its own volition and bringing them into a room where...
Show! Boys.
Dobby and
Tobro.
Surprise.
his second oldest ward, sat on a stereotypical medical bed you'd find in any doctor's office, in his form covered in the young man's favorite gray hoodie and jeans, his skin smooth, blemish-free, and healthy-looking, just like his hair.
You look...
Like he really is an Aizawa. Huh. You okay? Can we, His shoulder-length waves of ebony framed his features in a way that was familiar and not, whilst he fought to smile as he blinked away tearsy. Papa? Blinking himself back to reality, he was moving towards them before he knew what was happening, the young man meeting them halfway and slapping him.
Oh, wow. You're Eri-chan, right? Thanks for looking after our crazy nuts of old guy.
Yeah. And you're okay with us, right? It's a whole thing back home,
And the delighted, blushing child into a hug that had him laughing and crying right along with Demi.
I've missed you both so much.
He breathed.
Thank you for coming to save me.